Hello, blessings, and welcome to Inner Sound Healing. What we are focusing on is something that sounds at first like a contradiction, because the notion that there is inner sound, that is sound that is not made aloud, sounds contradictory. And when you realize that we are working tonight with sound that is seemingly silent, again, another curious contradiction. But it all adds up. It all makes sense because we are working with the kind of essential sound. You could think of it as the underlying vibration of the universe, or the underlying vibration of all reality, or even the underlying vibration of you, the being that you are. Now, when you recognize that with your consciousness you can tune in to these basic sounds, when you recognize that you can localize these essential sounds, silent though they may seem to be, localize them in time and space, and utilize them, you realize that this is something that is a presence, a vibration that you can sculpt and use as a healing tool for positive purposes. So we are going to be focusing on this inner sound. We are going to be localizing it and sculpting it and blending it with intention. We are going to be uniting this vibration that you discover within or without, utilizing your intention. Now, let's start to practice with being present and working with the inner sound. To start, tune in to the space all around you. Just tune into it and recognize that there's consciousness within you and consciousness all around you. Because we're working with sound, that is to say, vibration, we are going to be exploring this evening what it's like to tune into everything that exists, including you and everything in your environment, as a vibration. So tune in to you. Get a sense that from your head to your toes, you exist, and you can feel that which exists there. Now, get a sense, or just imagine, or pretend, if you like, that what you sense, what you feel within you is a vibration. Just know that it is a vibration, and get a sense that it might have a sound. What you're tuning into within you might have a sound that is evident to you, but it's probably going to be something at first that you just sense the presence of. You're sensing the presence of you, or the vibe of you. Now, get a sense that the vibe of you, you could call it a texture if you like. It's something that you can feel. You might be able to hear it. You might even see it as a light. But just get a sense that it's there. And get a sense that all around you there's a texture or presence of something. And get a sense that it too is a vibration. Now, it's possible that when you look around you at different objects, your linear mind might start to think, oh, well, how do I know what the vibration of this is? So with your hand, just imagine that you are reaching through the objects in the room, and you're touching a vibration. Just let yourself pretend your way through this. You're touching a vibration, and you can feel or know the vibration in anything in your environment. And after you do that, let yourself gently reach your hand. It's the hand of your imagination. Let that energy hand reach within you so that you are touching the vibrations there, touching the vibrations within. And however they seem to you, just let them be what they are. Just for fun, as you gently sweep your hands up and down, notice what happens to the sound or the vibration. Just explore that, introductory exploration. What happens to a vibration when you gently sweep your energy hand through it, sweeping your imagination through your body? Now notice that there are different vibrations. at different points in your body. Now, what would happen if, and we're saying what would happen if, which means we are entering the realm of imagination or the realm of pretending. What if you were to reach into the space of your body, and what if you were to find a vibration there? And what if you were to start to massage that particular vibration? What would happen? Excellent. Now, tune into that. You are tuning in, and you are starting to do something with the vibration. Maybe you're smoothing it out. Maybe you're expanding it. Or you could even concentrate it. What would happen if you reached in with your hands and you concentrated that vibration? Now, this is something that you're either going to hear or perhaps sense or feel. Tune into any space in your body and get a sense that you are just tuning into that place, that particular localized place in your body, and get a sense of the vibration there. And notice what happens when you turn up the volume of that place in your body just a little bit louder. We're going to play with some adjustments here, adjustments in vibration. So you are tuning up the volume right now. That's good. Okay, excellent. Now, get a sense of what happens that you can feel within your body when you have adjusted that vibration by turning the volume up. And then, of course, as you may have guessed, you are going to turn the volume down. Turn the volume down just a little bit. Notice what happens to the feel of that area and the feel within your body when you turn the volume of that down. Now, the idea that some might have that it's somehow good to turn it up and bad to turn it down, no. There are times and places to turn the volume up. There are times and places to turn the volume down. And so just notice and start to get creative with that and recognize, well, if something was a bit provoking, if it was a bit intense or chaotic, it might be nice to turn it down. And if something was lethargic or spacey, it might be useful to turn it up and get more presence. Now, let's get more creative and more precise with this. We're going to address a question here. What happens if something feels too intense when you turn the volume up? Now, actually, that is really useful information to get that from your own body, because that's telling you how you are calibrated. And that's the kind of information that you always want to get when you do vibrational healing work. So if you are turning the volume up and things feel too intense, well, then you turn them right back down. Likewise, if you were turning the volume down and it started to feel too lethargic or too flat or too spacey, then you would turn it back up again. So this is something that you can calibrate. And when you recognize that turning volume up and down is something that you have the power to calibrate, then you can start to work with your body as something that you can be a friend to. You can be a coach with your body, and you can help it out instead of just letting it get stuck wherever it happens to get stuck. Let's explore some more with this. Tune into the space between your two hands, and you might do this with your actual hands, or you might do it with your imaginary hands. Now, that space between your hands, whether they are your real hands or your imaginary hands, tune into the vibration there. And you might hear it, or you might simply feel it. But get a sense that it is similar to perhaps a singing choir, or perhaps similar to the tone of a bell or a violin. It could be any sound. But there is a vibration that is now growing and living between your hands. Now, the reason we're talking about having it between your hands is because you are now going to be taking this vibration and you are going to be placing it somewhere. So this is giving you exquisite control of sound and the placement of it and the use of it. So just pretend that there is an image of you sitting or standing in front of you, and take this vibration that you're holding in one or both hands, and just imagine slowly sweeping that vibration up and down through the image of you that is sitting right in front of you. Just move that vibration up and down through the body of that image of you that is sitting or standing right in front of you. Yes. Now, as you do that, notice if there are any places of sluggish or blocked energy, and then you could work that sound or vibration back and forth or up and down in that location that seems to be blocked. Okay. Good. Oh, that's brightening everybody up. Okay. Now, realize you have the ability, when you are holding that sound vibration in your hand, you have the ability to turn the volume up or down as you require. You have control over this. Let's see what happens. You explore now, and you're moving that sound, the one you're holding in one or both hands, through different parts of the body, and then you experiment turning the volume up, and you experiment turning the volume down. Good. Okay. Now, there's no right and there's no wrong. There is only what do you experience, and does it feel or seem to be useful? So it's not right, wrong. It's always useful. And believe me, even if you do something that seems to be going in the wrong direction, that is useful. It's always useful because you are discovering something. You're discovering about how different parts of the body need to have the energy adjusted. And of course, in the process of doing this kind of technique, in every single moment that you do it, you are learning about how to work with energy. Question comes up, is it possible that we are uncomfortable with our light energy? Yes, it's very probable in many cases that we have become acclimated to a stagnant energetic condition. It's entirely possible that as we raise the vibration or raise the volume of something, that could take us temporarily out of our comfort zone. And that's why when you do this for yourself or to assist anybody else, you want to stay in communication with yourself, or you want to stay in communication with the person whom you are assisting, so that you can notice and get information about, is this feeling okay? Is it too much? Do you need more? Do you need less? So it's something to be conscious with. Question has come up. If you are sweeping up and down the body and you find a blockage or density, is the correct response to turn the volume up or down? This is where it's difficult to give a precise recipe book approach for this kind of thing. And that's why the approach that we're taking this evening is that the correct approach is going to be either turning the volume up or down in accord with what you find you need. Now, if you're thinking, yes, but how do I know what I need? If you get some comprehension of the thinking behind the answer, then you'll be working at a more masterful healing level. The reason that you cannot be sure is because as a vibrational healing practitioner, you are always moving things. You are always adjusting and recalibrating. And so the correct approach is to start moving the volume up and moving it down. It's almost as if you're sliding it around to see what happens. You want to find out what happens. Now, the fact that you're exploring in that way doesn't mean that you're an amateur. The opposite is true. An amateur works automatically by the book without really calibrating to what's happening in the moment. The expert admits that they're not 100% certain, and so they're checking things out and they're calibrating. So I ask you, when you explore with your energy, do feel free to imagine that you have this scale of calibration or a dial that you can adjust. Now, this requires that you be responsible with what you are sensing, meaning notice what happens. When you turn it up, what seems to be happening? Does turning up the volume seem to be working with the blockage, or does turning it down seem to decongest it? See, it's going to be different for everybody in every different situation. So that is the answer to that. Onward and upward. We are going to do a refinement now. When you are working with the energy that is in your hand or in between your hands, whether it's literally held in your hands, some people like to literally move their hands about, and some people simply use their imaginary energy hands. When you are working in that way, in addition to turning the volume up and down, you can shift the texture of that energy. Now, when you shift the texture, let's just talk about for a moment what texture is. Texture can be soft. Texture can be hard. Texture can be spongy, like a sponge that could absorb something. Texture could be sharp and pointed, like a sharp stick, or like something that could be used to scrape. Or maybe it could be flat, or maybe it could be round. So all these things might describe textures of energy. And to the extent that you can, get a sense, if you are thinking of something being spongy, you might even imagine a literal sponge. Or if you're thinking of something that has the power to scrape, you could imagine a metallic scraping object. Now, how does this all fit in with inner sound? Because you are tuning in to the vibration. It's almost as if you have a living tone held in your hands, and it has the quality of a sponge, or the quality of scraping, or the quality of a laser beam, or whatever. Open up the imagination and let yourself pretend. Give yourself permission to pretend with the same flexibility and freedom that a child would have if you said, we're playing a game. So tell yourself, I am playing a game with energy. The sound that I hold in my hand can become like a sponge. It can become like a scraping object. It can become like a spatula. It can be what it needs to be. Okay. Tune into one part of your body and gently bring your actual hand or your imaginary hand towards that part of the body. You could either reach into your body where you sit, or you could imagine an image of you sitting in front of yourself. Okay? So, with this tone, this silent yet very present tone that you hold in your hand, start to sweep that tone with whatever quality or texture that it has through that part of the body that you are choosing to work with. Now remember, you are allowed to make little mistakes because there are no mistakes. You're only learning. So if you sweep a spongy energy through and you don't notice anything happening, you could toughen the texture of that vibration. You could turn up the volume. And the more you add variables to this, volume up, volume down, spongy texture, tough texture, you get all these interesting combinations. For example, what if you had a scraping object for scraping through blocked energy, and what if it was a little bit spongy and a little bit tough? And what if it had a very quiet vibration? So it does what it does in a rather muted, subtle way. Then for some other situation, let's say, the block seems very stuck, and so you need to chip away at it, and so you turn up the volume and you make your texture tougher, maybe metallic. So it's louder in vibration. Now, loud doesn't mean that somebody in the next room could hear it. Remember, we are working with silent sound, but we are working with the vibe or the feeling of turning up the volume. Now, even if somebody even sitting next to you cannot hear that, on the inner plane where you are doing this work, it is as loud as it needs to be. That's why it is silent sound or inner sound. So, explore with that. So as we're chatting here, you are exploring You are moving to different parts of your body. You're trying different textures that you hold in your hand, moving those through, turning up the volume. Now, that is definitely clearing energy. Let's take a moment, lift with your imaginal hands, lift the stale energy out of the room, release it into light or release it into the earth. Very good. Okay. Excellent. Now, let's keep on exploring. Let me see exactly what's happening with your aura. We need to do an aura clearing technique, and we are going to do that with sound. In the space between your two hands, either your two actual hands or your imaginary hands, imagine that there is a large beam of energy, and let that beam have a sound. And imagine that it is a very diffused, energetic shape, almost like a big, soft field of energy. It has a sound, beautiful, healing sound, but it's a big, soft field flowing between your hands. Just imagine that your hands were as big as the room and just sweep that sound through the room. So this is a number of things at once that you are imagining. You're tuning into the energy of the room, tuning into the vibration, the sound that flows between your hands, big, soft, broad beam of presence, and you are moving that gently through the room. And that's going to even out the vibration in the room. And I'm noticing that as you do that, your nerves look smoother. I'm noticing that the space in which you sit looks lighter and somehow more grounded as well. Okay. Now, the more you explore these individual techniques, do feel free to get creative with them. For example, if you could sweep your room, you could sweep a part of the room or another part of the house or any space of any size. So I'm just mentioning that as a hint because I want you to practice on your own time, taking all of these techniques and then applying them in many different ways. And you might even want to keep a notebook and write down, when I did this, such and such happened, so you can start to remember all your experiments and you can come up with all kinds of creative ideas that you might even want to share with people. Now, let's do some more exploring with inner sound. If you can create a sound vibration, and if you can create that with your imagination, you can tune into that sound and place it anywhere. So this is an important point, so let's say it again. If you can tune into a sound or a vibration, you can place it anywhere. Why? Because you imagined it. You're imagining it within your mind, but you could imagine it being localized anywhere. So this is a bit of a stretch for the logical mind, but let's just play right now with this. Within you, there is a tone. Just imagine it wherever you sense it. And remember, you might hear it, but you might not hear it at all. You might just feel it. But get a sense that the sound is somehow available, or you can feel it there. It's there for you. Now ask yourself, what if the vibe or the presence of that was somewhat bigger? And that's different from the volume. This is the size of it. What if it became a bigger field? And so let's just start with that variable. You have a sound within you, and you let yourself pretend. What if that presence, what if that field of sound was bigger in size? Now this is something that when you realize that you can do this, you will have learned a technique for clearing and strengthening your aura, for clearing and strengthening a room, and for being a lot more in alignment with working with sound and vibration. Yes, what I'm noticing is that everybody's body is looking stronger. Your etheric body especially is looking more vibrant. Your auras are starting to look cleaner and somehow stronger and more integrated. I am guessing that the reason that's happening is because you are creating a unified sound vibration. Now, where have you experienced that before? If you were ever in a place where people were meditating as a group. Now, of course, we are a group, even though we are located at different places on the planet, but we are doing this here. But when you realize that you can do this with sound, you will realize that you can generate in your own body and in your own aura and in any environment a vibration that is somewhat like the space, the sacred space where people are meditating. And one of the reasons that everything feels so good when people are doing that is because they are creating coherence. They are creating harmony. And so you are right now starting with a sound vibration, although it's silent and although it is within you, and you are making the field of that bigger. And so it's starting to create coherence. It's starting to create harmony in your environment. Now, you are allowed to make that sound that you are creating and blossoming into a bigger field of energy as big as your house. So let's try that right now. Make it even bigger. And it started with that little sound within you, but it blossomed and you let it become bigger. And so now it's blossoming and becoming bigger. And now just pretend. It's okay to pretend this. It is as big as the house. Now, even though it's big, that doesn't mean that it's so intense that it would blow the house down, because it's still basically a healing vibration that you started with as a vibration within you. And so there are some interesting possibilities here. One is that because you started with something that was personal to you, you are creating a vibration in your environment that's more tuned to you. So you are creating a sacred space that works for you. And that's something that might be nice to do at home, of course, but it might be really useful to do at work or in any other environment as well. Let's just practice that for a moment. And if you work at home, you could just think of the environment where you do your work at home. And if you work at a specific location, then just imagine your workspace. Just tune into that workspace and get a sense that there is a spot right in the center of that room. There is a particular focal point right in the center of that workspace. And get a sense, just imagine, that there is a tone there. Now, just that one little part of the process is already going to create some basic harmony in that environment. So you have a tone there, and then you're going to reach into that tone and spread it out. Just imagine that you're reaching into that tone in the center of your workspace and spreading it out so the field or presence of that living tone is bigger. And let's include the intention that this tone is designed to create happiness and harmony, prosperity and well-being. The tone is intended to create happiness, harmony, prosperity, well-being. And you're making it bigger. Now, when you make the field, the energy field of a tone bigger, you might think, well, is that going to be too intense? No, because you adjust the volume as you require. If that's the only thing that you learn this evening, that you can adjust frequencies in real time as you work, that is extremely important. That brings you to a much more masterful level of being a vibrational healer, knowing that you're adjusting as you go. It doesn't have to be perfect, because there is no perfect. Everything in life and everything in healing especially is adjust and then adjust and then adjust again. So that's always what you're doing. Just play with that. Make the field of that sound as big as you like, and then make it small. And realize that you have control over that. You have the ability to make the sound that you create a big field of sound, or it could be a small field of sound. It could be a little point in the center of the room. or it could blossom and be as big as the room or as big as the building. Now, in some cases, you might find that you need to turn the volume up. Maybe it's a really chaotic building, and you need a much stronger, louder inner sound to create harmony. But maybe it creates a little bit of nervousness. Maybe it's too much when you do that. Maybe you want a super subtle approach. So just imagine this. You have this tone that you created for positive purposes, tone with positive intentions. You made it really big, but it's really, really quiet. And that's not a contradiction. You could have a huge in size tone, but very quiet in volume. So all these options exist. More exploring. Now, tune in to your body. Tune into the space where your body is. Good. Now, just start to scan gently through your body and notice different vibrations. Vibrations that seem quiet, vibrations that seem loud, maybe some ones that seem stuck, some ones that seem flowing. Now, just explore. Go to a particular area of the body, whatever it happens to be. Notice, does it seem to be stuck or flowing? And find something that seems to be stuck. And just imagine that you could bring a sound through that place in the body and start to play with what you've learned. Make the sound big, make it small, turn the volume up, turn the volume down. Now you might be surprised. You might discover that you thought you had a big blockage, but maybe the blockage is tense and maybe it wants a really quiet, gentle sound. Maybe that's what it needs. Or maybe it is stagnant and it needs a loud, sharp sound. So play with the texture, play with the sound, turn the sound up, turn the sound down. Good. Now, remember, you might experience sound as sound. You might experience it as a vibration that you feel. Some people who are very visual experience sound as light, so they see sound. As long as you are somehow sensing a vibration and adjusting those vibrations as you move that vibration through this part of the body, it's all fine. And it's okay to adjust. It's okay to adjust the vibration as you work. In fact, that's normal. It's normal to maybe start with something strong and then smooth it out and make it a quieter vibration. Or you start with something really gentle and subtle, and then you make it much stronger. You keep on adjusting. There are so many fine gradations that you can play with. It's like a laboratory, and you can keep on exploring. And you are allowed and encouraged to do that. Actually get in contact with the part of the body and put the question to that part of the body. It's almost like a silent question where you inquire to that part of the body, what kind of vibration do you need at this time? Now, the answer may come to you in words, but often it comes to you as a subtle, quiet inclination. You have an inclination. I think I'll start working quieter. Or you have an inclination, I need to be more present, more strong, more forceful. Remember, being forceful consciously doesn't mean that you're forcing. You're doing all of this consciously. You are ever adjusting the vibration. And every time you do that, you learn something. You are always learning. Now, we are going to extend this, a new way of understanding vibrations and a new way of understanding problems and situations. Now, first of all, basic understanding here. When we talk about you, we are talking about you, the vibration. When we talk about your environment, we are talking about your environment as a vibration. And therefore, when we talk about situations in your reality, we are talking about a vibration. So, important concept here. If everything is a vibration, that means that with your consciousness, you can tune into your body, your mind, or any situation, and you can work with it as an energy, as a vibratory phenomenon. Now, you just proved over the last 3/4 of an hour that you are capable of adjusting vibrations. So it opens up interesting possibilities that you can start to do reality adjustment. And so we are going to play with that using silent sound. So take a situation. It could be any situation in your life, big or small, but please make it easy. Put the situation at a distance so that you do not feel immersed in it, so you do not feel stuck in it. So you put that situation at a safe distance. And remember, you are now going to be tuning into that situation, not as the situation you thought it was, but as a vibe, as a sound, as a vibration. So you might still see the situation, you might still see it in your mind's eye, but it is now turning into a vibratory phenomenon. It is a vibration. Okay, so some basic things here. Let's imagine a little volume control, turning the volume up or down. What would happen if you took your little volume control and regarding that situation, you started to gradually turn the sound intensity volume down? You were lowering the sound intensity or the vibration intensity. Let's just see what happens. Take that situation, start to gradually turn the volume down. And just observe and feel and listen. And you might notice that certain things that were sharp or intense are now becoming softer and muted. And you might find that certain things that were provoking or fearsome are becoming smoother and easier. Yes. Now, let's assume that, like people, situations have at their core goodness. Situations, like people, have at their core essence divinity. So, guess what we are going to do? Tune into the divinity. Tune into the divinity at the core of that situation. Even if you think it's a bad situation and even if you think it has no hope of improving, just tune into the presumed divinity at the center of that. Turn the volume up on that divinity. Turn up the volume on the presumed divinity in that situation. Even if you had told yourself there is no hope in this situation, you've already turned down the intensity of the situation itself. You are turning up the volume on its divine spark, its divine essence. And you might discover, you might inquire as you do this, well, what is the vibe? What is the feel and the sound of divinity? And so you might discover some things about this. And remember, when you tune into something like that, it's very subjective. So there is no definitive answer to what's the sound of divinity. It's whatever you experience. Now, for some people, the sound of divinity is something that sounds glorious to them. But for some people, it just makes them feel relaxed. For some people, it just makes them feel a little lighter, or it makes them feel a bit more hopeful. So whatever it is for you, perfectly fine. So at this point, everybody looks more relaxed in their heart. Everybody's core looks brighter because whatever your relationship with this situation was, you are now approaching this situation on a higher, cleaner vibration. And remember, you could do this for any situation because all situations are vibrations. You could do this for big situations, little situations. And, as we will explore next, you can do it for elements within a situation. So, here's how that works. And you could do this for a different situation that you want to work on or the same situation. So, the situation that you are looking at now, put it at a distance and tune into one particular element that is provoking or negative or limiting in that situation. Because this is a really important principle when you're working with healing and transformation. It's the idea that don't get overwhelmed, break things down into easy to deal with components. So take one little aspect, one little component of the situation and start to turn the volume either up or down for that element. Now, as you do that, you will sense a change, a vibrational change in the texture of that one element. But because you are working with one element in that situation, you are, in a sense, actually working with the whole situation. You're working with the whole situation by adjusting one little element. So, start to adjust the element, turn the vibration, turn the volume up or down. And if you're wondering, again, well, what do I do? Move the dial slowly up and then move the dial slowly down. It's okay to learn and discover. It's okay to calibrate and recalibrate. That is how you work at a higher level. It's okay to adjust as you do this. And you will learn something every time you make an adjustment. You might get insightful information about what needs to have the volume higher within this situation in order to have a good outcome for this situation. What elements within that situation need to be higher volume and which elements need to be lower volume. So just experiment. If at any point you are not certain, experiment with slowly turning up, slowly turning volume down. That is really interesting. I am seeing that for many of these situations, there was something that was not communicating effectively within that situation, and those different components, whether they're people or vibrations or whatever they are, factions, they're starting to actually communicate more harmoniously and smoothly. So that's really a good thing. I'm also seeing that you are releasing from your body and from your aura big chunks of heavy energy. So somehow rapport between you and this situation is changing. It's smoothing out. So you are not holding within your body and mind as much of that heavy problem energy. So it is releasing some stuff from you. With your imaginary energy hands, lift stagnant energy out of your aura and release it in light or in the earth. Release stagnant energy out of your workspace. Release stagnant energy out of your room. Just lift it out. And that's something you need to do anytime you work with energy. Anytime there's a change in the vibrations, release as often as you need to. Good. Excellent. Now, let's look at you and let's look at your situations. They are actually looking smoother. Now, if your logical mind is wondering, yes, well, what did that really do? When you work with the underlying energy of a situation, and when you adjust the energies so that they are more in balance, that allows all the components in that situation to be in greater harmony. It doesn't promise a particular result. It simply gently moves it more in the direction of a harmonious, helpful result. Now, one of the things that's beautiful and smooth about doing work with reality as a vibration is that it takes your attachment out of it. And this is what the ancient spiritual teachings were always mentioning. Don't be attached. And many people mistakenly thought that meant, well, don't care about anything. But no, that is not what they meant. They meant look at all of these situations in as detached a manner as possible so that you can gently move towards the highest outcome. So what's the connection between non-attachment and working with vibrations? When you work with vibrations, it's a pretty neutral attitude. It's an attitude of, well, this isn't the situation I thought it was. This is energy. This is a vibration. And when you do something that seems a little bit abstract, such as turning the volume up and down, it brings you into a detached state because you're not reacting against a person, you're not reacting against a situation. You're playing with adjusting the energy. Now, of course, yes, you do have an outcome. You do have a preferred outcome, it is true, but you are not that strongly attached, and you are definitely not as reactive. So this is a beautiful way to explore all these situations and all these people and relationships and environments that you live within, and to look at them as energy and to play with doing some gentle adjustments. Now, one of the people that you want to work with is you, and for any situation, if you find that after doing this you're still feeling reactive and very attached to the outcome, just find out where in your body you are holding the tension around that person or around that situation, and then start to adjust the frequency there. Just adjust so it's louder or quieter. Sometimes there is a relentless voice within. Turning down its volume lets you experience life without that yammering voice that provokes you. Now remember, you're not rudely saying, I refuse to listen to this voice. You are simply gently and lovingly turning the volume down. It's a gentle, kind thing to do, and it gives your mind some respite from provoking voices, something to play with and explore. Now, we are going to explore other ways to use sound for situations. Now, this is something that, like everything we do, involves the imagination. What we are going to be exploring step by step is the possibility that at the center point of any situation, there is a point of silence. Now, if you're thinking, well, how could people arguing, for example, be silent? Remember, at the spiritual essence, the spiritual center of any situation, including arguments or shouting matches or whatever they might be, there is a point of silence. It's a virtual point. It exists there. So let us tune into that. And the way you might imagine that, imagine a situation, something that has a bit of uncomfortableness or a bit of tension. Just imagine that at the center point of that scenario, and, I should have mentioned, imagine it at a distance. Imagine it safely at a distance. Now, at the center point of that scenario, there is a little point of silence. Just imagine that. Point of silence where there is no noise, no anything. Pure 100% harmony. Now, imagine that you are reaching out with your energy hand, find the provoking vibrations that are in that scenario, smooth those provoking vibrations gently from wherever they are in the scenario to that center point of silence, as if you were melting those nervous aspects of that scenario, melting those aspects into that center place of silence. You are allowed to pretend this. You are making it up. It's okay. Just take the noise in that situation and gradually move it to that center point and melt it into that center. This is a new take on release. Release to the silent center. Just let yourself play with it. It gives you new insights about the nature of reality. It makes you wonder, well, if I thought something was a certain way, what if that something that I thought it was is just the outer shell? What if the inner nature of it is pure silence? And so anything that seems nervous, or tense or angry or sad or upset in that situation, start to move those provoking emotional vibrations towards the silent center. And as you gently push those provoking energies into that silent center, notice what happens. Now, you are doing this bit by bit, all vibrational healing, layer by layer, bit by bit, working gradually. So the percentage of change, moment by moment, small percentage, but it does add up. One thing I'm noticing as you work is that your heart looks more relaxed, your nervous system looks smoother, and there's a buoyant, happier vibration. So even if the situation seems to be only changed somewhat, the possibility that you could bring about a positive improvement in a situation is definitely having a good effect upon you. So that is very nice. Okay. That is working. Again, if your logical mind is wanting to know, yes, but what good did that do? That worked at the underlying energetic level of creation. It created a vibrational space for deeper harmony. And whatever good you create with that, just let yourself discover that in real time as the days go by. And again, as with all healing practices, if you feel that you need to do a little bit more work, do a little bit more work each day. Recognizing always that every time you do something, you are just working at deeper layers. We just had an interesting comment that quiet point is like the eye of the storm. And yes, indeed, that is exactly what it is. Beautiful metaphor, too, because you think of a cyclone and you think of something that is 100% intense. But no, there is the eye of the storm, eye of the cyclone. And within everything, it exists. And if you're wondering metaphysically, why? Why is there something that is supposed to be calm within a crazy situation? The answer is because the crazy situation is the outer expression of disharmony, but at the core of everything, there is the calm center. It's a metaphysical truth, and it's only at the layer of consciousness that you might call the ego or the surface of the logical mind, where we look out at the world and we think, oh, bad situation. It's our judgment. We just had a question about detachment that applies to people who might be friends, family members, or clients. You totally love and care for that person. You are challenged to be detached because you would do anything to help that person. So remember, when we were talking about a situation, we talked about if the situation is provoking you, you put it at a distance. Now, you might say, oh, but I love this person. I don't want to put them at a distance. It is precisely because you love that person so very much, precisely because you are so attached that you must, in the healing work, visualize that person at a great distance. Now, you could be in the room with that person. You could be sitting with that person holding their hand, but when you work on the inner plane, you put that person at a distance. Now, what's a distance? A distance could be imagining the person being in the next room, imagining the person being 1,000,000 miles away. And how much distance do you use in your mind? You use the amount that is required in order to sense, I am working with that person out there. That gives you detachment. And the beautiful paradox in this, when you have detachment in your work, you can work with the people that you totally care about more effectively. In other words, you express your love and caring for them by creating detachment. It doesn't mean that when you talk to them, you're detached. You can be as loving and kind as you want in your speech. You can give them a hug anytime you like. But on the inner plane, when you do healing work, you're not working with the person you're attached to. You are working with that person out there. Make it abstract so that you don't care so much, so that the quality of your healing work is better. We are going to do some concluding meditations. We are going to play with the flexibility of your sound awareness. So let's try this one. You have a sound, you have a vibration. You're holding it in your hands. Now imagine that you spread your arms and you open up a space so that the field of that sound is really big as the room. And just feel that. Let yourself experience it. Notice what it does. Notice what it looks and sounds like. And then bring your hands together. Just imagine bringing your hands together so that you can localize and focalize that sound. Now it's tiny. Now, whether it's tiny or whether it's huge, there is a purpose for it. And if you're wondering, well, what would that be? This is something that you want to explore. Just to start that exploration, just imagine that you had a house. And imagine that the house had a sound that was a tiny spark starting in the middle of the house. And notice what happens to that house with that tiny spark of sound. And then start to expand it and make it big. And notice what happens. There are benefits when something is small, and there are benefits when something is big. And if you're thinking, well, which one do I use? I hope you're getting the sense that it's never one thing. You're always using a spectrum of techniques and a spectrum of sizes and a spectrum of textures, and a spectrum of vibrations. So it's big and it's small. Now, imagine that you're holding a small space of sound between your hands, small vibration of sound. Notice how you can change the texture. It can be a small, tough energy. Sometimes you need toughness, almost like stone. It's like a vibrating stone or vibrating metal. Good. And with that, you could melt through something if you needed to. Melt through a block. Now make it really soft. You could make it watery. You could make it like a sponge. It's still sound, but the texture of that sound, very soft and watery. Very gentle. So imagine moving that really soft texture of sound around and notice how it smooths everything. So play with that. It's not better, it's not worse than the tough sound. They all have their place. Good. Now, get a sense that you can tune in to a sound. You can hold it in your hands. You could stretch it out so that it's like a long metal pole. And imagine that you are holding this long metal pole and it's humming. It's humming with divine healing sound. And you could extend that pole so that one end touches into the earth and the other, of course, is reaching up towards the sky. And you're holding onto that metal pole, and it's a shimmering sound pole of energy. Good. And get a sense that the sound is going into the earth and creating harmony in the planet, and going up into the sky and creating harmony in the environment of your city where you live. And now imagine that you're holding a shorter pole, again, radiating sound, in your hand. And imagine that you are slowly sweeping it around, almost like a magic wand of sound. And imagine that you are sweeping it through the room. And notice how that cleanses the room. And now you reach above the ceiling, you reach into the sky. You're sweeping out the vibration in the space above your house with this pole of sound, slowly sweeping it and swirling it above your environment, above your immediate environment, sweeping out the sky with that sound. Now, melt that pole. Just let the sound melt. Feel into your heart. Feel into your body. Feel into your mind. Get a sense that you are a being of vibration. And you are safe and stable and grounded. And you know that you are you, and you know that you are loved. You know that you are okay. And you have some vibratory healing games that you can play. It's all serious and it's all playful, and you can learn and you can do it in alignment with the highest truth and the highest good. So, thank you for participating. Infinite blessings to you on every level. Thank you, thank you, thank you.